Been talking with the St. Louis County Police Department, joins us live with an interview. Laura.
Hey, Claire and Andre, yes, I'm joining you by Officer Brian Schellman with St. Louis County Police. Officer Schellman, really the first time I've gotten to talk to you much about this. So as of right now, what do our viewers at home need to know?
They need to know that the situation has calmed down a bit. We're still getting a few outlier calls as to people looking into and maybe canvassing some different businesses in the area. But we think that we have the looting under control for the most part.
Do you have any idea how many businesses were targeted overnight?
We really don't, because the last number I heard was 12, which is extremely low. I just heard of 4 or 5 more that they found in a strip mall. So we're trying to get those numbers together, and we will get those numbers, and we will give those to you as soon as we can.
Looking behind me, there is an overwhelming amount of police officers. How many municipalities, how many departments responded to all this overnight?
Yeah, so I'd explain that as in the law enforcement community, we put out what's called a Code 1000, and that's upgraded. It was upgraded tonight to a Code 2000. Code 1000 really calls for about 30 additional officers. So a Code 2000, you double that. The Ferguson Chief of Police, Tom Jackson, called for that Code 2000, requesting about 60 more officers. On our papers right now, after speaking with our communications, there was over 210 officers on scene. That doesn't, it's probably closer to 300, because when people hear this that aren't documented, they're still coming to help. So I'd say it's probably closer to 300. We have 19 municipalities that are documented. I'd call that number probably closer to 25.
We just heard the police canines barking over here. You were telling me earlier that some officers were injured overnight. What are the extent of their injuries, and where are they from?
Yeah, luckily one of our guys was hit with a brick. I believe he had minor injuries, and another one may have sustained a knee injury, but I don't know how severe.
Any updates on shootings overnight?
We don't think that anybody was actually shot. However, all night our guys were hearing shots being fired. I know that your people heard shots being fired as well. So, but we think at this point nobody's gone into a hospital saying that they had been shot, so we don't think that there's any victims of a shooting.
I've heard a chopper. I haven't seen it because the lights are off. One of our overnight crews said possibly shots were fired at one of your overnight or police choppers overnight.
Yeah, and we're sure that at least once the helicopter was getting shot at, and it could have been multiple times, 2 or 3.
What time was the height of when everything was the worst?
I'd like to answer that for you, but I really don't know, because I wasn't on scene and I wasn't the quote boots on the ground with these guys. So I really don't know, when it sort of peaked. If I had to guess, I would say it was just watching. It was probably around 11 o'clock.
Where do you guys go from here?
Well, we just ask the community to look. We understand that emotions run high in these things, but we have our job to do, and our detectives have a job to do to find out exactly what happened 2 days ago. But when things like this happen and you have this many officers respond, it takes them away from doing their jobs, takes them away from their communities as well. So we just please urge the community to just give us time, and we will do a thorough investigation and get this thing wrapped up.
And with time, though, there's still a lot of streets closed. It doesn't look like there's really a way for this target to be open whenever the sun comes up and normal business hours are supposed to begin. So today, what is the plan with opening streets and businesses? Yeah,
I think that would be better answered by Chief Tom Jackson of Ferguson, because it's still his jurisdiction, although he will be working with our chief and our commanders as well. So I don't know that. I'm sure somebody behind me does. If I find that out, I will definitely let you know.
Is there anything else I didn't ask you that I should have that you'd like to include?
Not at this point. I think that we pretty much covered everything, and like I said, we're still trying to get arrest numbers for you and how many places were actually damaged, and once we get those, we'll pass them along.
My final question, I've been talking to some of my colleagues who've been in the business 16, 20 plus years. They said that by far this is the craziest night they have ever experienced. How has it been as a police officer and for some of the other officers you've spoken to tonight?
Yeah, well, I've been a policeman for 12 years, and I haven't seen anything remotely close to this. I've spoken tonight and this morning with numerous veteran officers who have 25 plus years, and they haven't seen anything like this. So that should tell you exactly what we dealt with tonight.
Officer Schellman, thank you so much. I know it's going to be crazy for you. We appreciate you speaking with us live here on Channel 4. I'll be checking in with Officer Schellman all morning, bringing you guys the latest updates from the police investigation here at this staging area. Claire and Andre will send it back to you.
Laura, thank you very much. A lot of information coming.
Staging area is working to get more information and new information throughout the morning. And Laura, we understand you just heard a rather eye-opening statement from a St. Louis County police officer.
I did, Claire and Andre, and actually, in fact, I'm joined right now by Officer Brian Schellman. And just about 10 minutes ago, he said he was talking to one of his colleagues, and he actually told you that he was shot at last night. What do you think when you hear that?
Yeah, it's scary. It's part of the job. We know that when we sign up and when we partake in this career. Excuse me, but that is that was a good friend of mine, and yeah, he kind of just looked at me and said, "I got shot at last night." And you come to the realization that this is for real. And our helicopter got shot at least once. We think probably 2 or 3 times. And there was probably many other police officers who were shot at, and just luckily for us, nobody was seriously injured.
And that was my next question. With the injuries, we do know that 2 officers were injured. It sounds like at least 1 from your department.
That's correct, and I'm not sure the other may have been from our department. Minor injuries, was hit with a brick, but there was many of these guys. I was talking to some of our tactical operations members, and they said that immediately when they got out of the Bearcat behind us, there were bottles, rocks, bricks being thrown at them. So, and a lot of them were hit, and they just, luckily weren't injured.
But you guys have made headway. As of right now, it looks like 32 people from overnight have been arrested.
That's correct. That's the number that we have right now, is 32.
And what type of charges would these people be facing?
A little premature for me to say that. I mean, I guess it could range anywhere from burglary to larcenies. I'm sure that there's more, but we'll visit that as the day goes on.
We talked earlier about businesses and homes being targeted. Have you gotten any calls for houses?
We have not as of this point. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, but we have not been notified of any homes.
We know that you guys are leading the investigation into the shooting death of Mike Brown. Do you have any updates on that you can pass along right now?
Oh, we really don't. And, I may this morning after I leave this scene here, and I'm able to get to headquarters and speak with our detectives and the chief of police. And we'll see, where that investigation lies. But as of right now, I do not.
We've heard a variety of words to describe overnight: chaotic, stressful, tense. Any other adjectives you'd like to throw out?
No, because again, I was not here, and I don't want to act like I was, because I love the guys behind me and the job that they do every day. And 300 police officers. I wasn't one of them that was on the ground, because my job is to relay exactly what they did, and they did an outstanding job. So I don't want to give you an adjective, because I wasn't here.
And my final question: what are you guys going to do from here on out? It looks like a couple of officers might be leaving.
Yeah, I think that a couple of us are going home, but there's also many of the cars that you see leaving are just going to patrol the area. We'll sit down, our commanders, we'll sit down with commanders from Ferguson and I'm sure other jurisdictions, and figure out exactly how they want to deal with this, hoping that it doesn't happen again, but come up with a plan that if it does, how can we better prepare? I think that we did a really, really good job last night, again, because nobody was seriously injured, and that's the bottom line for us, is that our police officers go home safe. But we'll definitely revisit those things.
Officer Schellman, thank you so much for joining us live on News 4 this morning. We appreciate it. Again, we'll be out here all morning bringing you the latest on the investigation and what all the officers you're seeing behind me will be doing this morning. Claire and Andre, let's send it back to you.
All right. Eye-opening interview there with the St. Louis County Police Department. Laura, thank you for the latest from your perspective.